I'm going to introduce Dr. Iram, who's going to talk today about mental health. She's from the Muslim Women's Network, which is focused at the moment and has been for a long time on dispelling myths about mental health. She's been a GP for 10 years, and she's going to introduce herself a bit more. But the format for today is going to be a series of talks, exercises, workshops, and then we're going to end with a Q&A discussion and a closing comment, I guess, by you, Iram. But Iram's going to go through the schedule in more detail. We are recording today just because we want to keep something online for those who couldn't make it. But please don't let that stop you asking anything you want. I think Iram's pretty cool with people putting their hands up whenever they need to.
Definitely.
So please do interrupt with anything that's on your mind. Please do share today with anyone who wasn't able to make it. And also, in terms of this particular building, we wanted to make this event free for everyone so that anyone who needed to come, who wanted to come, can come. But we do have costs to cover. So there's a donation box at the back. You can pay whatever you want, give whatever you want, donate cash or anything in kind is totally fine as well. And if you can't donate in cash, then please do check out our website and you can donate via our online PayPal thingamajig. But yes, that's there at the back if anyone wants to donate during the day. I'm going to hand over to Iram now, so she can introduce herself a bit more on the day.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for giving up a warm day, for this talk. That's very good. So I'll just quickly wrap about me. I'm a GP, and I've been a GP for 10 years. I've been a doctor for 14 years. I know I look younger than that, that's why I always have to say that. And really what I want for you guys to do today is to learn a little bit about mental illness, and also to challenge some of the myths around that, and then to come up, then we'll have an exercise where you learn how it feels to hear voices, and then we'll move on to some talking about Jinn, and then we'll move on to talking about what we as a community can do to help. Okay? So I did a talk here back in October. First, can everyone hear me okay? Yes. Okay, alright, right, so I did a talk back in October. How many of you were there in the October talk? Can you put your hands up? Okay, that's good, so it's new people. And then how many of you work in the health profession? Put your hands up. Okay. So it gives me an idea of where to kind of pitch it really. And how many of you know someone with a mental illness? Right, okay. Right. Okay, so some experts in the field then. Okay. So that's probably more real than being a practitioner is actually knowing how it feels. Okay, so what we're going to start off with is a little quiz. So I'm glad most of you haven't been here before, because then this quiz is new. So I'll just pass it along. Okay, just pass it back to everyone. Let's go through it. So I think most people are done, so we're going to start going through the answers. So number one is how many people experience some kind of mental health problem in the course of 1 year in the UK? So how many, just a show of hands, how many people think it's 1 in 4? Okay, how many people think it's 1 in 10? Okay, and how many people think it's 1 in 20? Okay, so the majority of you think it's 1 in 4, about 60%, and that's correct. So that's quite yeah, so 1 in 4 is quite high, that's 25%, and that's just in 1 year. The second question, how many children in the UK have a mental health problem at any one time? Okay, so show of hands, 1 in 10. Okay, 1 in 25. Okay, and 1 in 5. Okay, so a little bit more even. The answer is 1 in 10. So again, that's a significant proportion of children, probably more than most of you expected. Number 3, how many prisoners in the UK have a mental disorder? A, 5 in 10. Okay. B, 1 in 10. And C, 9 in 10. Okay, so only one person thinks it's 9 in 10, and that one person is right. So that is, again, a really startling statistic. Why are 90% of people in prison, why do they have a mental illness? Okay? Now, is it cause and effect, or the other way around? And actually, it's probably a bit of both, but mostly the other way around. What I mean by that is, are prisons the best place for someone who has a mental illness? You know, and if our prisons are full of people with mental illness, why is that? You know, there needs to be some kind of, well, there's lots of research around that, and why do they end up there? So that's a kind of question for our society at large. So we'll talk a little more about that later. So number 4, people with a mental health illness are more likely to be a victim of violence, okay, and B, violent themselves. Okay, so it's actually a victim of violence. Again, this is a common myth that people with mental illness are violent or dangerous or you should be scared of them, right? And you know, one thing I want to do today is dispel, blast away, you know, myths really, okay? And this is one of them. They are not violent, they're more likely to be a victim of violence, okay? I mean, some of them are, I'm not going to lie, and then some of the general public are violent as well, so, you know, it's not proportionally more or anything. Number 5, how many people with mental health problems experience stigma and discrimination in the UK? A, 70%, okay, B, 80%, and C, 90%. So just under half will be 90%, and that's correct, it's 90%. Again, it's really, really high. So most people with mental illness will face some sort of stigma and discrimination. And that's where mental health awareness comes in, and that's what we're trying to do today, okay? And this week as well is mental health awareness week, so it's quite fitting that we're doing this today. Okay. Next page, we've got number 6. What percentage of homicides are committed by people who have been diagnosed with a mental health problem, again in the UK? A, 5%, 2 of you. B, 10%, 6 of you. And C, 20%. So the answer is actually A, 5%. Again, dispelling the myth that murders are committed a lot, or a significant proportion, of people with mental health problems. Number 7. Women are how many more times likely to be treated for a mental health problem compared to men in the UK? A, twice as likely. Okay. B, 4 times as likely. And C, 6 times as likely. Okay. So it's actually twice as likely. Okay. So some of you thought it was much more than that. But so again, this is a question: why do women get more mental health illness than men? Okay. And again, you know, is it because of their status in society, the lack of equality, discrimination, or is it genetic? So again, these are all, you know, things to think about. Number 8. Depression affects how many older people living in the community in the UK? A, 1 in 5. Okay, about half of you. B, 1 in 10. A couple of you. And C, 1 in 20. The answer is 1 in 5. So again, that's quite high. And if that old person lives in a care home, that increases to 2 in 5. So it doubles. Number 9. How many more times likely are young Asian women to commit suicide compared to young white women? A, twice as likely. Okay. B, 3 times as likely. Okay. And C, 5 times as likely. Okay, so the answer is B, 3 times as likely. Again, this is quite a startling statistic if you think about it. And research also shows that Asian women are less likely to present to statutory services for help. Then they're less likely to be diagnosed correctly. Then they're less likely to receive the right treatment. So every step of the way, there's inequality in health, and that's again, you know, a significant point that we should go to. Number 10. What's the leading cause of death in men under 35 in the UK? A, heart disease, a couple of you. B, cancer, and C, suicide. Yay, we all got that right. Thanks much. So yes, again, you know, the major cause of death is women. Yes, it's a finding of the seat. Okay, so again, you know, the highest cause of death in men under 35. That's quite significant again. So the purpose of me doing that quiz is to kind of just get you to think around some stats and some facts around mental health, and hopefully, you know, you would have learned something from doing that. Okay, so let's get on with it. So again, just going through the aims again for today. So number 1, first and foremost, myth busting and challenging preconceptions. Okay. Number 2, I'll talk a little bit about what mental illness is and how kind of to recognise it. I don't expect you're you know, those that are health practitioners, I do expect you to know, but the rest of you, I don't expect you all to know how to diagnose it, but just to kind of know that something isn't right. Okay? Then we'll do an exercise where you get to feel how it feels to hear voices. Okay? And then following that, you do a little bit of a debrief, and we'll talk about what you can do on a personal level, because I get asked this question a lot, what can I do? If I know someone at work, my family member, or I suspect someone else is not going to the doctor, what can I do? So I've put a slide or two together just to kind of give you a little bit of guidance there. Then the one that everyone likes to talk about, or it's a crowd kind of use or colour, is Jinn-related illness. Okay? So what I'm going to do is give you the facts and not the fiction, hopefully, today. Right, so we're going to start off with what is good mental health. Okay, so being mentally healthy isn't just about not having a mental health problem. Okay, so good mental health means where you can make the most of your potential. You can cope with life's ups and downs, because life is normal to have ups and downs, and it's normal to get stressed sometimes. Okay, and to be able to play a full part in your family, workplace, community, and friends. Okay. So the point to remember is we all have good days and bad days, and when we have a natural kind of sad thing happen, like a bereavement or other stuff like that, you're going to feel down. But it's when it gets to the point where it's making you feel, where it's actually affecting your functioning or lasting a long time and stopping you be able to do things, so stopping you being able to do these things. Okay. And some people, they can get over things and their makeup is different, but everyone is different. Just like some people are short and tall and different colours and different diseases, mental illness is another thing like that, where some people cope and some people can't. Okay. So the next thing, one of the myths that I want to bust is that it is not a real disease. Okay. So many people think that mental illness is caused by weakness rather than a medical disorder. Psychiatric disorders are not true medical illnesses like heart disease and diabetes. People who have a mental illness are just crazy. Okay? So these are the sorts of things that a lot or many people kind of believe, really. And again, this is wrong because it is a medical condition. It disrupts a person's thinking, feeling, mood, and ability to relate to others, and it affects their ability to function daily. So these are things that we take for granted, like getting dressed, going to work, having a relationship, having a family. Research shows that there are genetic and biological causes for psychiatric disorders, and that they can be treated effectively. Okay? So the way I like to kind of, when I'm in surgery seeing patients, the way I explain it to my patients is, diabetes, everyone knows, is a lack of insulin. You don't have enough insulin, so you can't process sugar. Okay? And to treat diabetes, you give people insulin, or you give people things that make insulin go up. Okay? So mental illnesses are due to an imbalance of neurotransmitters or chemicals in the brain, like hormones in the brain. Okay? And there's an imbalance in people with mental illness. Okay? So when we give them a pill, it alters the level, and that makes them feel better. And there's other treatments. Pills are not the only treatment. But my point is that no one will say to a diabetic, "Oh, you're just weak. Your iman is weak. Your faith is weak. Get over it. Be positive." So you shouldn't say that to people with mental illness. Okay? It's not. It is a real disease. Okay? The second myth is, you can will it away. Be positive. Put yourself together. Be strong. Pray more. All of these things are good, but they're not going to get rid of an illness. They're not going to get rid of diabetes or cancer or heart disease. So how are they going to get rid of mental illness? Okay. So the myth is. The myth has disappeared. Let's try again. Here we go. Right. The myth is, if you have a mental illness, you can will it away. And being treated for a psychiatric disorder means an individual has in some way failed or is weak. Okay. Now this, again, is wrong because mental illness cannot be willed away, and ignoring the problem does not make it go away either. And it takes courage to seek professional help. You'll be amazed by how hard it is for people to come to see the doctor, and by the time they've come to see the doctor, it's usually got really, really bad. Okay? And it takes a lot of courage for patients to do that.
What do you say where, a lot of people I know who try to get help for this, they go to their GP, and the GP follows that myth, which is like, oh, okay, here, take some pills, you'll be fine. I've come across a lot of people, and they might get referred, but the system's not very good at dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no system is perfect. I agree with you, but I mean, it depends on the case itself. But I mean, I wouldn't expect a doctor to say it's not a real disease.
I mean, no, it's more like this kind of, okay, I'm sure you're acting up, kind of thing. Like in there, the way that they deal with it is not as serious as they should deal with it. And I've come across this more than one time for me to say this.
Yeah, I mean, then you should come and complain, because to me that
they're depressed, so they can't complain.
No, but one wasn't. To me, that is unbelievable, because I wouldn't say, and none of the people that I know would say that, and none of the people that I work with would say that, right?
It's not what they say; it's how they deal with it. Where, like, especially girls when they go to the doctor, and it's like they're having stress about something.
Yeah.
I've come across quite a few times where the doctor will say, well, kind of throw them a pill and then say,
what kind of pill do you mean? Depressant?
Antidepressant, off the shelf kind of antidepressant, and then they kind of say, well, come back in 2 weeks and it gets worse.
Right.
And more than one time, that's why I'm interested.
I mean, going to the doctor isn't the only help available. Okay, there's lots of other, lots of mental health charities and other things. But when you're right, the person who's got the mental health problem isn't going to be able to complain. They haven't got the motivation to, right, or the strength to. But then, that kind of thing shouldn't really go unchecked or unreported. And if you know of that, I would bring it up. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is talk a little bit about different types of mental illness. Just very quickly, I don't want to spend ages on this, and I'm going to concentrate on the first four, just because of time really. So depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and eating disorders. Depression and anxiety are the most common, okay? Schizophrenia is probably the least understood, and eating disorders are pretty common as well. Okay, that's why I'm going to focus on those four. So depression, like I said, is common, and in depression, people feel low, okay? They feel depressed, they feel hopeless, worthless, unmotivated, exhausted. It might affect their sleep, their appetite, they might eat too much or too little, they might lose weight because of that. It affects their libido, their self-esteem, they might be tearful. And you can have different levels of depression, just like probably other illnesses as well. So you can have a mild form where it makes you feel down, and it's getting down a lot, but you're able to function and maybe go to work where you're just feeling down all the time. Or it can be severe, where you can't even leave the house because you're that unmotivated. Okay? And people who are depressed also can have thoughts of self-harm and suicide. Okay? So that's depression. Like I said, I know it's very brief, but I just want to give you a bit of a flavour. Then anxiety is the second commonest mental illness. And this is a constant, unrealistic worry about any aspect of life. And these people are restless, they may have sleeping problems, not being able to sleep. They have an overproduction of the stress hormone, so their heart goes really fast, they might get funny stomach, like if you're going for an interview or exam, you sometimes have diarrhea, they have that stress, that feeling all the time. Okay, they can be shaky because of these stress hormones. Their muscles are very tense, so they get lots of pains and headaches. Then they can have panic attacks where these symptoms become too much and they have like a acute episode, so a panic attack. And phobias are another form. So there's lots of different phobias. So not being able to leave the home, or there's lots of different phobias. And these are all types of anxiety. And sometimes it's not just like you get one or the other. You might get depression and anxiety, or you get anxiety and then it makes you feel depressed. So these things are they can come, in more than one, more than one really. Schizophrenia, like I said, is probably the least understood, by the public at large. And this is about hearing voices. Okay, hearing voices or seeing and believing things that other people don't share and that are abnormal for your context. So what do I mean by this? So we all can sometimes talk to ourselves and we can hear our thoughts, okay, in our head. But with hearing voices, these thoughts, you can't switch them off. They're uncontrollable, and they sometimes can be quite nasty and say things like go and kill yourself, or you're worthless, or you're fat, so they can be, and they're always, and you can't turn them off. So most people can hear thoughts in their head, but for people who have schizophrenia, they're uncontrollable and they can't turn them off.
So is it like it's not their own thoughts?
It's not.
It's like another person.
Yeah, it's illness. So it's another person. Yeah.
So it's not like if you be your cat, for example, and you say, "Oh, I'm it's
No,
not like that.
no.
It's
They
more
hear
like
voices.
it's like another
Somebody telling
person.
them, yeah. And sometimes they have like different voices, so they have a female or a male. They might have 3 or 4 different voices.
Do you have to have all of the symptoms, or?
It's not that simple. So you have to have some, but yeah, not all of them. But there's a whole classification where they work out exactly what it is. But these are the specific symptoms. But the main thing is hearing voices, and a delusion is believing something that's not normal for your context. So, for example, in the Muslim community, believing in Jinn is normal, right? Yeah. So if you believe in Jinn, you're not kind of deluded. Okay, that's normal for your context. In Africa, believing in spirit possession is normal. Okay, so if you believe that, doesn't mean you're crazy or you have a mental illness problem. It's just that's normal for your context. So this is why kind of transcultural medicine, so practitioners should be aware of what their beliefs of their the people that they're treating are. Okay. Okay, the next thing is confusion. So because of these thoughts, they don't know what's real, they don't know what's their own head, what's coming from somewhere else, so they get very confused. Okay? And when you do the exercise later, you'll know what I mean by confusion. Okay? And the other thing is, at the beginning of the illness, they don't realise that this is an illness, and they think those voices are real, and some people think that the government has implanted something in their head, or the aliens, no, it's true, or the aliens are talking to them, because for them there's no way of kind of rationalising what is this, and in the acute phase, it must be awful when you don't know it's an illness. It's one thing knowing it's an illness and then trying to cope with it, but not knowing it's an illness, and it would be really difficult, because you start thinking, who's controlling my head, okay? So therefore they become withdrawn and very suspicious of others, because they think everyone might be doing the voices or is out to get them. Right? And because of this kind of confusion, they are initially reluctant to believe that help is needed, so they're hard to they present a bit quite late, rather than, if you get something treated earlier, it's easier to treat, right? So this is, hardest in that way. And the interesting thing is actually up to 4% of the population hear voices, and they're good voices, okay? And so most people actually don't have a problem. So famous people who hear voices, anybody know any famous people who hear voices? Come on, one name.
Is it the mathematician in the
Yay! John Paul Nash. Yeah, he did. Years ago.
Aren't some of these symptoms sometimes caused by some pharmaceutical drugs as well? So you pick out a few of them there.
Yeah, no, you're right. This is what I said. It's not about just these symptoms and that's it. It's schizophrenia, right? No. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a kind of a summary in 2 minutes, rather than because otherwise I could do a whole talk. You could have a year learning about schizophrenia. Yeah. So you're right. These are not. I'm not saying that this is the only symptom. Okay, but yeah.
So as a GP, how would you treat somebody who comes to you with most symptoms of depression, but like my mum was saying, the kind of psychotic elements as well? So I mean, if somebody were to say to you, I've been feeling low for such and such a period of time, thinking of killing myself, and I occasionally hear voices and will see things, would you be tempted to send them for a psychiatric evaluation to see if they have schizophrenia?
Absolutely, yeah. So depression and anxiety are usually GPs can treat, but if there's there could be more than that, eating disorders, schizophrenia, OCD, any of those, then I would refer them.
So that is, you would definitely refer them rather than just put them on antidepressants to see what happens?
It depends on the case really. Are they a risk, are they low risk, are they high risk?
Mm-hmm.
So it would depend on the situation. And the patient might not want to go to an antidepressant. Mm-hmm. So it's not that straightforward. You have to, because there's stigma attached to that. So you have to kind of. If I could give you a straight answer, then a machine could be a doctor. It's very nuanced, isn't it, depending on the patient. And you have to work out then what's right for that patient. So if my suspicion was it's more, then I would send them. If I thought it was less, and they were at risk, then I might try to treat them with tablets. So famous people, other famous people are Mahatma Gandhi, Anthony Hopkins, the actor. We talked about John Forbes Nash, Charles Dickens, famous writer, Winston Churchill. You probably explained some of the things he did, and Sigmund Freud as well. Okay, so there you go. These are famous people with voices. Okay, so the next thing I want to again touch on briefly is eating disorders. And this is could be where people either eat too much or too little. So anorexia is where people lose weight, okay, significantly their BMI drops, okay. And bulimia is actually more common than anorexia, although anorexia is more well known. And here the weight is steady, okay. In bulimia, people they binge, eat, they're going to make themselves sick, they make use laxatives, okay. So with eating disorders, people are constantly thinking about food, about weight, about self-image, okay? And the way I describe it is because everything else in their life is so out of control, this is the only thing that they feel that they have any control over, okay? So it's to feel control, okay? And usually, so there's other issues, deeper issues, or emotional pain, you know, etc. So that's why people do it. And a lot of, even with people who harm themselves, again, sometimes it's because feeling that pain for a few minutes numbs the other stuff that's going on in their heads. Okay.
But what if, like, if they're constantly thinking about food and they're having weight gain, then they're in a sense they've lost control of even that, because they're constantly eating to kind of forget about other things.
Yeah,
so they wouldn't have control of that.
No, but they think they have control over their food. They don't have control. You're right. But they do it because that's the one thing that they can kind of constantly obsess over, because rather than deal with other problems.
No, what I mean is they can't control but eat. All they do is just eat and eat, but they can't control.
Yeah.
They control it, like say, I'm not going to eat this today, or I'm not going to eat this now because I only ate half an hour ago. They don't think like that. They'll just eat and eat and eat and eat because they just don't want to think about anything else.
Yeah, I think with anorexia it's more to do with feeling control.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, with bulimia it's more they just...
Yeah, I wasn't talking about anorexia, I was talking about the opposite.
Yeah. Okay, so, where are we now? So we've got, now I'm talking about those two. Right. So this is the hearing voices exercise. So, you need to get into groups of 4. So I think there's, yes, get yourself in groups of 4. Then one of you needs to come to me and collect some scripts, okay? And then the 2 in that 4, you need to roll a piece of paper up, I've got some sellotape here, and make it into a cone which I'll show you. So get yourself into groups of 4 and you need to sit facing each other. Okay, so we all had a go at hearing voices up there, okay? And now I want you to shout out some words that describe how it made you feel. Confused. Scared. Irritating. Annoying.
Unable to like carry a conversation.
Unable to have a normal conversation. New experience. Angry.
Fine. Reactive.
Reactive as
I just feel like...
Agitated?
Yeah,
agitated.
Yeah.
It's like being out on a night out, but then after you go out, you don't want people to start talking to you, you're like, oh my god, I have a headache, stop talking to me, but you still want to...
So it gave you a headache? Yeah?
Kind of.
You kind of will.
Yeah.
Carried on.
Yeah, it's like being in a really busy room, but all very intensifying.
And you said disorientated.
Sorry.
Any more words? Right, so all those words. Now, you had the control to switch that off. You could stop the exercise when you had enough, okay? And you did it for a maximum of a minute, maybe a minute and a half, right? And now someone who has bad voices hears them pretty much constantly. Sometimes not all the time, but pretty much constantly. Then imagine trying to hold a job down, fill in an application form, driving, talking to your loved one, having a family, having a relationship. So imagine all those things we take for granted, going to the shop and talking to the shop assistant, okay? And how you were laughing when you were in the voice, because some of the things that those scripts are made you laugh, okay? So imagine just bursting out in laughter in the middle of the shop, okay? So, and how people would look at you, okay? So, and to be honest, all that script was pretty kind of nice stuff really, none of it was that nasty. And they can be quite nasty voices as well. They can be intimidating, derogatory, tell you to go and kill yourself, okay? Now, so imagine having that pretty much all the time and then trying to function, okay?
I understand like the part of hearing voices and everything, but what would you say about a person that will look at themselves in the mirror and talk to themselves, or they'll just randomly talk to themselves anyway? They're constantly, not constantly, but quite a few times.
Talking to yourself and hearing voices is different.
Yeah. It's
would talking to yourself be?
Again, it's like I said, it's not. It's hard to give you. It depends on the situation. Okay?
Yeah.
But hearing voices is you're not talking; they're in your head.
Okay. What if you have a conversation with this person in your head?
You can have. People do have conversations with voices. In their
And
head.
then they start doing the hand movements and everything.
There's lots of different types,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, that it's the voices that are not in your control that you can't switch off. It's not like saying, "Oh, what should I wear? This looks a bit. Maybe I'll try this." It's not that.
No.
Yeah.
It's weird conversations.
Voices, does it usually come from past experiences or past conversations that people had with the person?
Sometimes yes, but sometimes not. Okay. So again, there's no straight answer. Do you want to say anything? Oh, okay. You look like you're going to say.
No, you're right, and sometimes voices are in different language. For instance, something complete gibberish.
That's right.
Yeah.
But what if, like the lady said, what if you do find someone who you find them talking to themselves?
Okay, so we're going to go on to what you do if you know what's going on, okay?
Because I think that's.
Right, so I just want to move on because I don't want to run out of time, and then we can just save some questions to the end, okay? So I just want to talk a little bit about how having a mental health problem, not just voices now, affects a person's ability to function. So as an individual, imagine trying to do acts of daily living such as washing, dressing, cooking, cleaning, okay, shopping, okay. How are you going to have a social life if you're feeling like this, okay? How isolated you feel, what your self-esteem would be like, how motivated, will you feel that crap all the time? What's your motivation to do anything, okay? How is it going to affect your ability to be, achieve things academically, financially, in the workplace, okay? On a family level, how will it affect your relationship, okay? The lack of understanding that's there in between family members and the wider community, so you'll be segregated. Sometimes people don't want to take their family member with mental illness out because of shame of what they might, they may play up when they're out or something, okay? So the shame that comes with it, and the effect on carers is a heavy burden and a strain on people who live with, with people with mental illness as well, And then again, it affects on children in the family as well, the kind of stress that it places on them. So I'm not talking about voices here, I'm talking about mental illness in general. Then at work, the discrimination that people face at work, their ability to work and concentrate when they're feeling that way. Okay? So this is just to really think about how mental illness can affect so many facets of life. Okay? And then as a society, the stigma, the fact that it might be a punishment for sins, that kind of thought, Jinn, substance misuse. Okay, now, a lot of people do, because they're feeling so bad, substance misuse is sometimes their only outlet, and that's why you get a lot of substance misuse and drug alcohol abuse with mental illness, because that's the only 5 minutes piece they get. Right. Personally, I don't blame them. Right? Then the economic cost to society. Okay? These people not working, okay, and treating them as well. So the cost of it as well. This, again, the discrimination, and then the fear. There is general fear in society of mental illness. Okay, so this is a slide that, again, very, very basic. Okay, but it's like if you know someone or come across someone, what can you do to help? Okay. First thing to remember, you don't need to be an expert to help. Okay, obviously to treat them, you do, okay? But to help them. Okay, all you need to do is talk. Okay, and talk stands for 4 things that I'm going to. It's an acronym. Okay, T actually starts with, it is for talk, and this is simple. It's just, I know some of you may remember the Time to Change or Time to campaign where it says there was adverts about just talking to someone like they're normal. Don't be afraid to ask how they are. Have a normal human conversation. They might want to talk about their mental health problem. They may not. Okay, but the main point of this is let them know that they don't need to avoid the issue with you. Okay? Just like if someone in hospital, how are you? How are you feeling? That's all you need to ask. They're not anything special. Okay? So T is for talk. A is for ask. Ask how you can help. You're not supposed to be a mind reader and know what they need. Okay? They might just want you to come to their appointment. Exercise is good for mental illness and stress relief, so you might want to become their exercise buddy and motivate them to exercise. Okay? They might need help with shopping. The list goes on. So you need to ask them, what can I do for you? How can I help? Okay? Again, very simple. N is for listen. This is really important. Listen and be open-minded and non-judgmental. Leave your preconceptions at home, okay? Or actually get rid of them totally, training them at home, okay? And just be open-minded and listen. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak, okay? So listen to how they feel, and just sometimes listening, you know, sometimes we feel powerless, or what can we do, but just listen, okay? And that is enough, you know, so when you get people, they feel they're able to be listened to, that's sometimes, you know, very helpful. And then K is for knowledge, to seek knowledge and learn about their mental health problem. There's so many resources out there, okay? You know, in other languages other than English, they're harder to find, I'll give you that. But in English, there's billions of resources out there, and I'm going to give you some websites afterwards that you can turn to try and be, if you learn a bit more about their condition, and teach maybe your family members, you know, maybe people at work, so spread that knowledge. Okay, so it's very simple. Talk, ask, listen, knowledge. Because in an emergency situation, if you think someone is at risk to themselves or to others, okay, and you know, you're in that situation, then you can call an ambulance, call 999, okay, you can take them to A&E, and if they're not going to move, or they're not that acute, or they're, you know, you can ask Samaritans on a 24-hour helpline, and we often, as doctors and nurses, we give out a number for a patient to ring in a crisis that they can talk to someone. It's anonymous, okay? So you don't have to give your name or anything, you can just talk, okay? Then in a non-emergency, so where you think someone might have a problem, you're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, you're not going to diagnose them, but you think they might have, go and read about it, maybe leave some leaflets and something off the internet and say, look, just read this, you know. Because most people, they feel quite isolated, they think they're the only one feeling like this, they think they're going crazy. So for them to know that this is part of an illness and it's not them going crazy, that can be like a lifeline really, okay. You can tell there's lots of helplines people can ring for, so there's a Muslim youth helpline as well, which I'll give them in the report at the end. There's a Samaritan, like I've said, okay. The support groups, there's voluntary sectors as well, which I'll put up the Mind website as well. And then again, talking, just talk to them, and you know, encourage them to see their doctor, their GP or whatever. Okay. I always forget about that bit, but that's important too. Okay. Right. Okay, so now I'm going to move on. Let me see how we do time. Okay. So now we're going to talk about Jinn-related illness. First thing to note, I mean, does everyone know what Jinn is? Yeah? Okay, right, fine. So I will talk the next point I'm going to talk about what Jinn are. Okay, but Jinn are blamed for lots of problems, okay? And so is the phenomenon of black magic or evil eye, which is nazar, okay? And the types of problems, I mean, you've probably all heard different cases, okay? Sometimes they're blamed for medical illnesses, for psychological problems, hence why we're talking about it today, for marital problems, for your partner being unfaithful, for errant behaviour, such as, there's one case, as Muslim Women's Network, we got of a grandfather sexually abusing the granddaughter and blaming it on Jinn, and the family accepting it. But it's not him, but it's Jinn, right? So it's used to explain away,
justifying his sin.
yeah. Okay. Another case, okay, a real life case, okay. A girl told her mum she was gay, okay. The mum took her to a faith healer and said, is she possessed by a Jinn? There's got to be a Jinn, okay. She wasn't possessed by a Jinn, okay. And the mum was disappointed. Oh no, you know, I'd rather she have a Jinn than be gay, right? Okay.
I can understand that.
Okay, but each their own. But my point is that, you know, this is the kind of, anything that you do wrong, oh, it's got to be Jinn, right? You know, life is full of different things, but everything can't be Jinn.
No.
Right? And then mysterious things that happen that can't be explained, and usually, you know, if it's, oh, you're not doing well at school, there must be Jinn. Okay, but, you know, there's a lot of blame on poor Jinn. And I say poor Jinn, yeah, I'll tell you why. Because I'll tell you why poor Jinn, why Jinn are poor. Okay? So, the point to remember is 80 to 90% of those who think they have a Jinn-related illness are wrong. Okay? And possession is even more rare. Okay? So when I say jinn-related illness, is that jinn has been, by that mind, has been told to cause an affliction rather than being possessed actually. Okay?
Sorry, where are you getting that statistic from?
Yeah. That statistic is, I have taken it from when I've spoken to different imams and scholars, when I've researched it on in papers, okay? And that's why I've said it's approximate, it's not exact, okay? This is a figure that I've got from other sources and more than one source, okay? So, and anyway, the other point to know is possession is more rare as well, it's not that common. Okay. Jinn are mentioned in the Quran. They are beings and they are made of smokeless fire. They have free will and are accountable for their actions. Okay? So this is why I said before jinn, because they're also accountable for their actions. They go to heaven or hell, so they don't want to be bad. You know, I mean, there's bad people, there's good people, but not all jinns are bad. Okay. And they can. The thing about them is you obviously can't see them, and they can change form and move very quickly, and then they take up different kind of like shapes and forms. They have families, they eat, they die. So that in a way they're similar to humans because they have free will. Obviously angels don't have free will. Okay? So that's why I said that, you know, why are they blamed for everything? Most scholars believe jinn possession is possible, but some don't. Okay, so I have, you know, come across scholars both in literature and personally who don't believe.
But the ones that don't believe in it, they can't really say that because not only does the Quran have a chapter on the jinn, there's also the Prophet
no, in
Muhammad,
jinn possession, not on jinn,
possessed
on jinn
as well.
possession. A study in the UK, so this is from 2011, and this figure has been repeated. Is approximately 80% of Muslims in the UK believe in jinn, and almost half of them believed in jinn-related illness. So that, again, this is a figure that has been repeated. It's been 70-80% and 30 to 40% believe in jinn-related illness. This is just the public. Okay. So, what are the kind of signs, symptoms, or discriminating features, okay, for jinn-related illness? Okay? So usually, again, the reading that I've done, the cases that I've come across, are things that are unexplained. Okay, so unexplained physical symptoms and sudden changes in behaviour. Okay, speaking rubbish was something I found quite a lot. So when they say things that don't make sense, and failure to respond to medical treatment. Okay, now some of these things, as a medic, I would say can be explained by medical problems. Okay, you can't explain everything in medicine. Okay, you know, but I suppose in jinn, it's when I've spoken to the imams and read what they've written, it's more to do with something that's quite different than what. So you can't. It's not explainable medically. Okay, right? I mean, I'm no expert on jinn, so I'm not claiming to be an expert. This is, you know, my experience, what I've read, the research that I've done. Okay. Then what do you do to? There's lots of different things that are done to try and treat jinn-related illness from a faithfully or spiritual healer point of view. Okay, and the most common and the most important, from what I want to say, is something called ruqya, when you recite verses from the Quran. Okay, and this, you know, this will prove whether there is a jinn-related illness or not. Okay, it's usually done by someone who's learned, like you said, in that field. Okay, and three things can happen when ruqya is done. Okay, either nothing happens at all. Okay, and in that case, the person doing the ruqya says that the problem wasn't jinn-related; it's more likely a physical or psychological problem. The second thing that can happen is like the patient would be either like an exorcism, the jinn will speak through them, and they will be distorted, their face may be distorted, and will speak through them. Okay. Again, as Muslim Women's Network, we saw a case, one of our board members went to a ruqya and saw someone speaking like that. And again, but if you know how to, this is going to happen, and then that happens, is it because of what you know, or is it because it actually happened? Okay. But these things are kind of. It's not just, a lot of people have, it's not just one case, there's lots of cases. And then when the jinn speaks through the person, then the person doing the ruqya tries to reason with them to leave. Okay? Because it's a sin, it's wrong, they try to reason with them that you're going to go to hell, that sort of thing. And the more they read the Quran, the more pain it causes the jinn, and then eventually they leave. And the third thing is in between, where you don't actually get the jinn speaking, there's no seizure as such, but signs indicate that the jinn has gone. So then people may have like a wishing feeling of pins and needles, a heaviness, a coldness in a limb, and then that is said to show that the jinn has then gone. And then obviously the patient will do as well. Okay? Now other things, I've come across, and I'm sure you all have, more examples than I can, are where people are beaten, physical punishment, where they're beaten, where they are burnt, okay, so yeah, physical treatment. And the other thing is where they're given water to drink, that's how the ground, or versus the ground get to it. Okay? So that's that. Now, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, is jinn-related illness and Western medicine compatible? Okay? The point to note is it's not incompatible. Okay? Like I said at the beginning, if you hold a belief that can be explained by your culture, your background, your ethnicity, your religion, that is not a delusion, then that is a valid belief. Okay? And the spirit of possession is actually a feature of other faiths too. So Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, and in African culture as well. So it's not just Christianity as well. Christianity as well. What's the
of like ruqya, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exorcism.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So there's not just Muslims who believe in spirit possession or jinn possession, and spiritual and medical treatment can be used simultaneously. There's no need to pick one or the other. In fact, you should, if you want to use both, you shouldn't exclude and only use that as one. Okay. And there is beginning to happen. I've been to lots of conferences, spoken to lots of psychiatrists who do use, try to integrate the faith perspective into their treatment. You can't treat someone who believes in their faith and without any more their faith. Okay? So this integration is there, and it should probably get better as well. Okay? So. I just wanted to talk a bit about why blaming the jinn all the time. I mean, yes, if they did cause a problem, fair enough, okay? But, what's the problem with that, okay? The problem that I've seen, and, as Muslims network we've come across, is delay in seeking medical treatment, okay? If I've said that the majority, okay, maybe not 80-90%, but the majority, okay, or a big proportion, or at least half, okay, are not due to jinn, then delaying seeking medical treatment means worse outcomes, because you're worse by the time you get there. Okay? That's why there's a high proportion of people sectioned from that community, because they don't present, it's too late. Okay, well, it's one of the reasons anyway. And then the cases I gave you about the child abuse. So by using jinn as an excuse, you explain and therefore to some extent accept this error behavior. Okay? Number 3 is denial. Denial of real issues, denying the problem, not seeking help, okay? Denying that your child is gay. Okay? So it's, denial is a problem. Number 4 is these faith healers. I mean, obviously there's some good ones, but there's a lot of not so good ones. The cost, I know again personally of a situation where a family, their son was hearing voices. They kept taking him to a faith healer, and they lost thousands of pounds. The dad's business went bust, and only then, at that point, did they then seek medical treatment. Okay? And again, there's loads of cases. There's actually a lot of literature in mainstream journals and the Royal College of Psychiatrists who talk about these cases. They've done studies, and again, so they have case histories. And the cost, thousands and thousands of pounds are spent on it's not just one ruqya, it's repeated visits. Okay? Right? And then again, if you want to seek treatment from faith perspective, fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but why not go medical at the same time? There's no need to keep them separate. Okay? Because again, a delay in diagnosis is a problem. Right. So what I want to do now, it's 3:40, and I want you to get back into your groups of 4, I think there was about 7 groups, okay? And I want you to think about what we as a Muslim community can do to help those with mental illness, right? We've talked a lot about, you know, the stats, about some of the symptoms. We've done the hearing voices exercise, okay? And you know how it feels a little bit, okay? I know, you know, and we talked a little bit about Jinn. So I want you to take that kind of what your thoughts, you know, and think about what we can do. For me, this is the most important part, and for Muslim Women's Network, this is the most important part. Why? Because the things you come up with, okay, I've done this exercise before. If one, you know, if something is coming up again and again, we will do it. This is what our mandate is. This is what we want to do. We want to bring change around this subject in the community. So come up. You might want to take one idea and do it in detail. You might want to think of lots of ideas. Okay. So I want you to just think about what we can do as individuals. You might say, I'm going to go and talk to my dad about it today, or my parent, my mum. Okay. Or you might think, I'm going to talk to my friends about it. Talking is enough. Okay. You might think, as a society, as a community, as as mosque, what should we do? Okay. In the workplace, what can you do? If you're in HR, or if you're you know someone at work, what can you do to help someone at work? Okay. In the home, friends, family, and then government and NHS level, you know, at higher kind of policy level, what can you do? Okay. So just think about those things, and those sheets I'm going to then take back and analyse and put together, and then you can think what we can do. If you get back in your group of 4. So we've had a chance to kind of chat about what we can do. So what I want you guys to do, because I just want to do this a bit quickly so we can have some Q&A, is basically for each group just to present maybe their top 3 or 4 ideas, okay? And as we go around, what you'll find is that your idea may have been said, okay? So then just choose 3 that haven't been said already, okay? So any group wants to go first?
You go first.
Okay.
No, you go first.
Okay, you put your hands up, sorry. Yeah.
We got here, I'm Inclusive.
Okay.
We got improving training for Muslim chapters, raising awareness about mental health conditions via creative events.
Via screen.
Such as film screening.
Such as what?
Such as film screening.
Film screening.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Next group.
Revisit the term Jinn within mosques and what that means according to Quran and everything else. Network link with mental health professionals and imams, so I don't think there's that much of a link where either of them know much about each other. So working together. Educating both. Regulating this whole exorcism industry, because I think that there is a lot of people out there who are making a lot of money out of it. A lot of work needs to be done on stigma. I think it will go back to what I was
what kind of work? I think maybe I should have made it clear. What kind of work? I mean to get rid of stigma, but how?
We were saying that mosques, we can encourage mosques to actually have leaflets inside the mosque in different languages, because obviously Muslims we speak many languages, not just Arabic.
I mean, our mosques are not very Islamic in terms of the way they run. They're not.
But if we can drop leaflets, and I'm sure there's a lot of mosques that will accept.
I mean, you need to start the dialogue, the conversation. You know, get in there, leave some leaflets.
Yeah.
Do khutbah should be on time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so khutbah, have literature in mosques, ask the imams to talk about sexual health. So it's not just about sex, but you know, sexual health, the whole thing. Because that doesn't happen at all. Engage online, so having that, using the whole online forum to engage with one another. But I would strongly, passionately say, talk more to one another. Just on a general basis, and I think that kind of interlocks with stigma as well. So the more we talk to one another, talk about experiences, the less the stigma is.
It's really simple. You know, in terms of, because a lot of people say that services need to do this. They do. I'm not saying they don't. But if you're not even going to present there, you're not even go for it. What's the point of setting up a service that's not used? Okay. So until we don't get rid of this stigma and we don't get there, then you know, because services are, if they're not used, they're closed down. But there's not money to go around. Okay? So you've got to kind of, the stigma, for me, I think stigma is, we've got to do that first before you can, or at least do that a lot before you can move on. Okay? So, okay, thank you very much. That was 2 groups.
Another idea we had was that when you give your zakat to give your sadaqah, often to sort of like, we give it to like a charity and I'll give it to war zones or earthquakes or famines, and that's excellent, but there's nothing to stop you as an individual giving Salapa to like a mental health charity or something like that. Yeah. Because that's still valid as Salapa.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's in your local community as well, so a lot of people want
or giving your time to volunteer if you have.
Yeah. Thank you. Any more? Yes. Yeah.
Just one more thing we want to say, it's not particularly practical, but 3 out of 4 of us can talk about people in our own family who we know they've had mental health problems, and one of the sort of solutions, if you like, is to get them married off quickly. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And to not tell the girl or the boy's family about their mental health problems. And not only is that harmful for the bride or the groom, it's harmful for the person with the mental health problems as well. And there's no reason why people with mental health problems can't get married, but maybe get their mental health sorted out before they get married, rather than seeing marriage as a fix-all solution.
Thank you. Okay, so next group. Any more from that group?
I just wanted to add one thing in terms of some of the ideas that were mentioned by the other groups, echoing on some of them. I think collaboration is important because I personally feel, this is my view on this, a lot of work is being done and it depends where it's done. Some people might feel like it. So there are mosques that are brilliant at giving out leaflets for relevant things, like your idea, and there are mosques that don't do anything. So it's a matter of bridging that and synergizing. That, to me, that's what collaboration is all about. Technology is there to use that, and collaboration to me is the simplest way of saying the talent and the resources are there. How do you disperse it so other people know about what's been done in the West End and the East End to know about it?
Yeah.
That to me is key to getting that awareness. Because it goes back to the same idea as being the one on the time. In America, they're like light years ahead, I think, in how they deal with these problems. So in England, it's a bit of a lag there, but it's improving because 2 years ago, the normal income was not even known about here, right? So to me, that's changing in that sense, and using those key figures to get the message across, whether it be mental health or any topic, is the concept of collaboration, and that's important.
Great. Well done. Right, so that's the end of my talk. Oh, here are some resources. Okay. Thank you for your ideas. I'm going to keep all these pieces of paper and make sure you can use me. I've got some feedback forms. We're going to have a Q&A, but just while that is being kind of moving on to that, just take these feedback forms. I really want your views, good, bad, ugly, anything. We've got about 10 minutes for Q&A. We've got to start packing up. In about 10 minutes. So anybody got any questions? Do you want to share it actually?
Yeah, so I'll try and keep things in order. Yeah, if you just put your hands up, we'll take about 3 questions and then go back to Iram. And also, if anyone wants to contribute to what anyone else is saying, I think we can open it up wider, right? So we don't have to put the pressure on you. But yes.
You can take it, I know I'm
keep your questions as concise as possible just because we're short for time. But please don't feel afraid of sharing anything, any concerns. Yeah, this is we're trying to make this one of the safest spaces that you can have to discuss this in. So please be honest and don't worry about confidentiality or anything. Whatever you say, we're just going to stay within these borders. Okay. So we'll go with this gentleman, then Farouk.
Well, 2 things to say. Well, the first is to Dr. Iram, just to ask you, as a psychiatrist, how do you interpret, obviously using your background, how would you interpret the phenomenon of jinn possession? And the second is a comment to one of the young ladies who was sitting here, speaking about denial of the Quran if you deny the jinn. That's actually not true. There are different opinions regarding what jinn are. No less than the Mufti of Al-Azhar, Muhammad Abdu, said that jinn were actually microbes. So
I used to think that as well.
Yeah, there you go. So there are different rationalist opinions.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to get into kind of the nitty-gritty. There's so many opinions out there. I'm not a scholar. I wanted to talk about lived reality, what people think, what people say, and that's what I wanted to reflect really. I'm not the authority on jinn possession.
Anyone else?
So your question was, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a GP.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Right? And what did you say? What was my take on jinn possession?
As a GP, I mean, let's bracket the fact that you're a Muslim yourself.
Yeah.
How would you interpret jinn possession?
So someone came to my surgery?
Someone came to you and you said,
yeah. So I would I would look at the medical side of things, take a history, work out what's going on. I would say if you want to see a trade deal, that's okay. I would say try not to get ripped off, okay, and use someone reputable. So where we were talking about having a reputable kind of regulation, okay, but do not exclude the medical aspect of your disease and the medical treatment and the medical, kind of side of things. Like I said, I suppose because I'm Muslim, it's easy for me. I know about Jinn, okay, but but even as a non-Muslim, I think really as an NHS or as GPs, we need to be aware of all these things. Like FGM is a big thing now, okay? FGM, there's so much training going everywhere in the NHS for them to get, kind of know about this phenomenon and what it's about, and learn about it, and not be afraid to ask about it. You're not offending people if you ask about it. And I think, personally, I actually think, that, we live in a society where in this country where if there's something out there, the services do try. I know there's a lot of negativity about services, and because that's because you only hear the bad, you never hear the good. Okay, but all my colleagues, they try really hard, and I don't need to know about just Muslims, but what Polish people think about their health beliefs. I need to know everything, and there's new people coming up all the time. So actually, learning and keeping up to date with everything all the time is not that easy. But we can get better. I'm not saying we're there yet. I'm just saying that I think we live in a country where there's a will to do stuff.
How do you think people who are non-Muslims, doctors, are open-minded in terms of, there's a patient coming with this belief that there was a Jinn possession?
I think as GPs, probably, if you've got an interest in it, you might know, okay? Because, GPs see everything. But as a psychiatrist or mental health team, I think the awareness is there. Okay? I've been to enough presentations on the Royal College of Psychiatrists and stuff on there. So I think there is, and what's good, I would say if I don't know something, I'll go and find out. I don't know everything all the time, okay? But if I don't know something, I'll go and look into it for you. So I think that, but you have to sometimes, it's not perfect, but I think the will is there. Then I'm optimistic. So what I would say is if you vote with your feet, if you go to a GP for any problem, depression or not, and you don't like what they say, you go to another one, you deregister and register somewhere else. They get paid if you're registered at their practice, right? They get not paid by how many times they visit, but by the fact that you're registered. So if you don't like a GP, leave. Okay? Soon the income will start going down. Okay? And just because you have one bad plumber come to your house and messes up your radiator, does that mean you hate all plumbers and you never use a plumber again? No. So doctors are the same as humans, right? We make mistakes. I'm probably not very good at kind of surgical things because I just think they're boring. So when someone comes with I'm like, well, yeah, go and see that doctor, he's better at surgery. But when it comes to mental health, I'll spend the time because it's my interest. Okay?
But when the patient comes to the practice and with very strong preconception was wrong, and you as a GP say actually, no, this is something else. They may find someone who would finally agree with them with their concept of the illness, even if it's not there, if it makes sense.
Right.
Okay. So you're asking, just to clarify for everyone else, you're asking about how does someone be objective about their own illness and not shopped for the right,
absolutely,
for the right diagnosis that they
already
want
in mind, because it happens even with physical illnesses, of course.
Yeah. It's difficult. You can't. A GP appointment is 10 minutes, and you can't solve the world.
But that's going back to the topic of collaboration. There's collaboration between the NHS.
Yeah,
If you think, let's say you're not a Muslim and you're not aware of these kind of cultural sensitivities, then it's your responsibility to go say, I don't know about it. Speak to this doctor.
Yeah.
He does. That's where I think it'll channel it out there.
Do you want to take this?
Yes, sorry. We'll go Harvey and then you.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to see a GP doing something good on the weekend. Mine is always closed on the weekend, so always wondered what you GPs do on the weekend.
We're humans, we have families, we eat, we're a bit like this, we have...
Like a gym. So my question is, in regards to campaign on mental health and also teaching people about mental health, especially when it comes to the term of Muslim community and exorcism, what is being done to, because I'm taking from the context of FGM, because a lot of FGM practitioners are now being retrained and given skills to access other, to access the job market, what is being done for accessing practitioners to access the market? Obviously, I know a lot of people are, it's a controversial question, but anyway, you have it. And have you heard of anything like of that nature?
Can we take your question and then we'll go back to you?
The question was, to what extent do you believe that a doctor of any sort should allow their religious or cultural beliefs to impact their treatment of a patient, with regards to especially things that that religion or culture might have issues with? So if somebody goes there with concerns to mental health or their sexuality or their sexual health, especially if, say, it's like a young Muslim girl who maybe had a sexual partner or something, and the GP, because of their own beliefs, views it in a certain way. Do you think that, being sensitive because of that understanding of the culture can be used in a positive way, or do you think it can be detrimental? How far should you go with letting your own personal culture or religion influence the way that you treat people?
Thank you. So let's take Harvey's question, which was about what is being done to move exorcist practitioners to a more legitimate job market.
That's a very good question. I think in terms of Jinn and evil eye and black magic, I've been to at least several, I know of several conferences between mainstream services and faith kind of imams and the community at large, where they've had a dialogue. So you'd imagine there'd be people here who want to learn about what you want to say to them, and they're the policy makers. So there's stuff around that I've definitely seen lots of. In terms of faith healers, I think that's, I haven't personally heard, other people may have, but I think that's something that's really hard to regulate, But I think you're right, I think we need to expose firstly, and we need to gather evidence and cases of what kind of rubbish happens, okay, and I'm going to call it rubbish. And then, there might be some good practices, fine, but, gather the evidence, and then once the evidence is there, then kind of think about, okay, because once you don't have a case, it's just hearsay, and then maybe think about the next step. So that's what I think personally needs to do first, okay? Which is the idea for MW, I'm write a report on that. Okay, and then the question
you also asked about how does a doctor's beliefs in turn affect how they diagnose.
Wow, summarise.
Sorry, I waffled.
So,
machine.
So alter the way present, of course they do, because all of us have beliefs. Okay, so we have, what we believe about, whether we believe antibiotics are cold, what we believe about whether we believe in gin or not. So I think that definitely alters the way a person presents. And as a health practitioner, you have to kind of, I don't know everything about every single culture and person that presents, but I can ask. Okay, so I can say, is this normal? Is this what your community? So you can. It's not as if you can just ask the patient, or you can ask, maybe other family members or people from that community. So I think yes. So first, does it alter the way? Yes, it does. Okay, right. Secondly, you asked about how far should a doctor's beliefs go into advising a patient. Now that is, a doctor is not there to judge. Okay, a doctor is there, or any health practitioner is to provide information and guide that person to what they need doing, okay, right? Or what treatment options they have, okay? So, I don't care what they say, as long as it's not criminal, okay, right? Because you're not there to judge, and the way I see it is, okay, you get a 12-year-old Muslim girl who asks for a job, right? So, how's that different from a 12-year-old English girl, okay? Right? But I would say, okay, so if I don't engage with her, okay, if I say to her, I just, my face, my expressions go away, or this is ridiculous, or what you're doing, she'll never come back to see me again, right? If I engage with her, I might have ideas about what are you doing, okay, right? But I would engage with her, and then the second time she'll come and she'll ask me about something else, and the third time, and eventually I'll have a doctor-patient relationship with her where I can broach things, okay? So you can't, the doctor-patient relationship is kind of not built up over one, appointment. So I would say you shouldn't so when it comes to cases of abortion, or what Islam says, or what I think, or it's not of no consequence to me, okay? I give them the information, it's their decision, and I help them make their decision, okay? you know, because you can't be a doctor. I mean, I hear about these medical students saying we don't want to learn, medical students saying we don't want to learn about alcohol abuse and drugs because we don't use alcohol. I'm sorry, you can't be a doctor. You can't be a doctor in this country if you don't learn about that.
Or anywhere.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah, this is rubbish. You know, we don't want to. You know, there's been PC and there's been frigging the other way, right? Yeah, stupid, right? So you know, so I think you shouldn't let your beliefs, you know, affect your patient. If you do, you should probably do it.
That's really good to know though, because a few years ago there was a huge controversy regarding, I think it was the Christian Association of GPs and the way that they were interacting with their patients, especially like patients with alcohol abuse and the places they send them. So I'm very happy to hear you talk like this because it's quite heartening.
I mean, that's what it's not just me, right? That's what
no,
we
of course,
in medical school, right?
You're an example of a good practice, so I'm very happy to see that.
But this is what we were taught, you know, about ethics and autonomy, and these are all things that we're taught. Yeah, there's some bad GPs out there, there's some bad plumbers out there, okay, right? But, you know, there's good ones as well, you know.
Thank you.